We wanted to start by thanking all of you for coming, and especially to your organization for the invitation for us to be here. To us, it's extremely important, this opportunity, for us to tell you what we know about medical marijuana and what we've experienced personally or through friends with Montana's medical marijuana law. So we're really grateful for the opportunity to talk to you today and answer your questions. I was involved in 2004 in the final drafting of Montana's Medical Marijuana Initiative, Initiative 148, and then I helped direct the campaign for it, which, as you probably know, succeeded that year, making Montana at the time the 10th state to have a compassionate medical marijuana policy. I've been involved in drug policy reform issues ever since. Last year I helped create an organization originally in Missoula, now a statewide nonprofit, called Citizens for Responsible Crime Policy. That group sponsored a successful initiative in Missoula County recommending that all adult marijuana offenses be made the lowest law enforcement priority in Missoula County. The field director of that group, CRCP, Angela Goodhope, is here with a little camera in case any of you have questions about that initiative and what it means for Missoula County. Right now, Citizens for Responsible Crime Policy is focused on the job of trying to make sure that that initiative works as we intended and hoped. And the group is also focused on a legislative interim study that the Law and Justice Committee is doing on the subject of alternatives to prison for nonviolent, simple drug possession cases, all drugs, not just marijuana. And also earlier this year I created an organization called Patients and Families United, which is a patient support group for Montana's medical marijuana patients and their caregivers. And we speak not only to all medical marijuana patients regardless of their medical condition, but we're also starting to get involved in the concerns of all pain patients, whether they use medical marijuana to address their pain issues or not. Some of the folks I'm here with today are registered patients in Montana's law, and we want to start off actually by having you hear some of their stories. But first, I wanted to just quickly offer a synopsis of some of the key features in Montana's law. And I'm sure it'll come as no shock to you to hear that, like many laws, the medical marijuana law in Montana has lots of gray areas, and as one gets more familiar with the nuances of producing medical grade marijuana, it becomes clear that even aspects of the law that seem very clear-cut at first read are actually more complicated than you might think. Lists a bunch of medical conditions, and if you are someone who suffers from one of those medical conditions and your doctor is willing to sign a recommendation form, not a prescription but a recommendation form, then you can apply with that paperwork to the state health department to become a registered patient. Every person who is registered as a legal patient in Montana's law is also allowed to have a caregiver. A caregiver is essentially someone who helps produce medical grade marijuana for that patient. As of a couple weeks ago, there were on the order of 428 registered patients in the state from 38 different counties based on recommendations from 130 different doctors. And I forget exactly how many caregivers there were, but I think on the order of 160 or so. Every patient is allowed one caregiver, and a licensed caregiver is also allowed to serve more than one patient, and that's certainly the case with a number of the caregivers I know, that they grow marijuana for more than one patient. Once you're registered, you are legal under the Montana law as regards state and local law, and the law allows you as a patient to possess up to 6 plants and 1 ounce of what the law calls usable marijuana. Your caregiver as well is allowed to have the same quantity on your behalf. But there are legal problems that patients run into even when they're registered, even when they're clearly operating within those quantity limits. And certainly a number of folks I know who weren't registered as patients have encountered some serious legal problems. There's at least one case, there's definitely one case I'm aware of on appeal to the Supreme Court right now that our group is getting involved in doing an amicus alongside the Montana chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union. That is a real brief overview of some of the core aspects of our law. I think it's important to note, too, that Montana's public vote on this issue was and remains the strongest public vote ever held on this subject in the country. We became the 10th state to have such a law. There are now 12, but no vote by the people ever went as well as ours. We got more votes than Bush, than Schweitzer, and Rehberg did on that election day, which I think is pretty significant. Denny Rehberg agreed to the point where he has switched ever since his vote on an annual issue in Congress called the Hinchy Amendment, which seeks to defund the Drug Enforcement Administration as regards medical marijuana issues in any state with a policy like ours. One that involved use of the medical marijuana law. And I think Craig intends and hopes for this to be a rather free-flowing conversation and presentation. We definitely want to hear any questions you've got and to address them. But first, as I said a moment ago, we want you to hear some of the real-life stories of patients so that you'll have a fuller, deeper, richer understanding of marijuana as medicine.